They thought he was just another human, until their best warriors fell, and the alarm screamed his name. The mission should have been simple. Elite operatives. A soft target. A flawless extraction. That was the plan. It unraveled in less than 5 minutes. Dante Reeves woke up in darkness. A metallic tang filled his nostrils. Restraints bound his arms and legs. But the real problem was the gravity. It was weaker than Earth's. That meant one thing. He wasn't on the planet anymore. He exhaled slowly. No panic. Panic got you killed. He flexed his wrists. The restraints were tight, but not unbreakable. A test pull confirmed they relied on synthetic fiber. Strong but elastic. Not military grade. That told him something else. Whoever had taken him underestimated him. Big mistake. A hum vibrated through the floor. Engine resonance. He was on a vessel, likely mid-flight. That narrowed his window. Escape needed to happen before they hit whatever destination they had planned. He adjusted his breathing, listening for the subtle shifts in air circulation. A vent nearby. Good. That meant a system to exploit. Footsteps approached. 2 sets. A controlled pace, military precision. They stopped outside the door. A second later, it slid open. Pale blue light flooded the chamber, revealing his captors. They weren't human. Humanoid, but wrong. Slender builds, elongated limbs, sharp black eyes too large for their faces. Their armor was sleek, silver plates over a flexible underlayer. The insignia on their chest plates marked them as military. Maybe special forces. That part didn't matter. The taller one spoke first. Subject is awake. Unexpected. His voice carried an unnatural resonance, like 2 tones overlapping. Dante didn't react. He let them come closer, studying their movements. They moved like professionals, but not like predators. They relied on their technology, their numbers, not experience. That was another mistake. The second alien tapped a device on his wrist. Prepare interrogation protocols. Neural dampeners engaged. Dante felt the shift immediately. A tingling in his skull, like static crawling through his brain. They were trying to suppress higher function. Slow his thoughts. Make him compliant. He smiled. These idiots had no idea what kind of brain they were dealing with. Years of counterinterrogation training, psychological conditioning, and sheer human stubbornness had made him a nightmare for interrogators. He leaned into the sensation, let them think it was working. His breathing slowed. His muscles went slack. A perfect picture of submission. The shorter alien moved first, stepping within arm's reach. He pulled out a scanning device, adjusting its settings. Dante struck. His movements were a blur. He snapped his head forward, smashing his forehead into the alien's face. The crunch of cartilage was satisfying. The alien staggered back, reeling. Before the second one could react, Dante twisted his wrists, wrenching against the restraints with all his strength. The synthetic fiber stretched, strained, and then snapped. In one motion he lunged. His freed hands found the second alien's throat. A sharp twist, a sickening pop. The body crumpled before it could cry out. The first alien gurgled, clutching his shattered nose. Dante didn't give him a chance to recover. He grabbed the scanner device from the fallen soldier's belt and smashed it against the survivor's temple. The alien collapsed. Unconscious or dead. Didn't matter. Dante exhaled. That was the easy part. Alarms blared. The ship knew something was wrong. He crouched, stripping one of the bodies of its wrist console. If he could crack the interface, he could override door controls. Maybe more. The intercom crackled. A new voice. Calm. Commanding. Containment breach detected. Subject is loose. Lethal force authorized. Dante grinned. Now they were starting to understand. Dante moved fast. The ship's corridors pulsed with red emergency lights, the alarms howling through the metallic walls. He had no map, no intel, and no time. But that didn't matter. He had something better. Instinct. Training. The same things that had kept him alive through Black Ops missions and hellholes across the world. Now they would keep him alive in space. The first thing he needed was cover. Open space was a death sentence. He sprinted down the nearest corridor, boots silent against the alloy flooring. The ship's design was sleek, sterile, built for efficiency rather than comfort. That meant predictable layouts. Military efficiency always fell into patterns. Find the pattern, find the weakness. A door slid open ahead. Dante pressed himself against the wall, waiting. Two aliens emerged, weapons drawn, moving cautiously. They expected him to be running, panicking. Another mistake. Dante stayed still, controlling his breathing. The moment the first one stepped past, he struck. He grabbed the alien's wrist, twisting the weapon free before slamming an elbow into its throat. The second one reacted fast, bringing its rifle up. Too slow. Dante pivoted, using the first alien's collapsing body as a shield. The energy blast ripped through its armor, burning a hole straight through its chest. Before the shooter could adjust, Dante hurled the corpse at him. The impact knocked the rifle aside, and Dante closed the distance, driving his knee into the alien's midsection. It staggered, but only for a second. That was all he needed. He grabbed the rifle from its grip, flipped it, and fired point-blank. The alien dropped. Dante checked the weapon. Compact, lightweight, no traditional trigger. But the power source hummed beneath his grip. He adjusted his hold, feeling the balance. This would work. He took the second rifle for good measure, slinging it across his back. He moved. More aliens would be closing in. The ship's AI had already locked down escape routes, sealing doors with security overrides. He needed control. That meant the bridge or engineering. One would be swarming with command staff, the other with technicians. Technicians were easier to break. The ship trembled. A deep, mechanical groan echoed through the halls, followed by a shift in gravity. They were trying to disorient him. Smart, but not smart enough. Dante adjusted, pushing forward, using the shifting weight to his advantage. A security checkpoint loomed ahead, a reinforced barrier, manned by 3 more guards. They had cover, elevated ground, and, most importantly, confidence. Dante walked into view. The guards hesitated. He was unarmored, outnumbered, and carrying their own weapons. He saw the calculation in their black eyes. Surrender. Maybe they'd take him alive. Dante raised the rifle. The first shot took one through the chest. The second hit the console behind them, sending sparks and smoke into the air. The third guard fired back, but Dante was already moving, rolling beneath the counter, coming up inside their perimeter. Close quarters now. His world narrowed. One strike to a throat, a sharp twist of a rifle stock into a skull, a kick to send the last one sprawling. He finished it with a shot to the head. He was inside. The console was his target. He slung the rifle back and studied the interface. Alien symbols glowed across the screen. The language was unfamiliar, but the structure was recognizable. Systems, access codes, network pathways. Technology always followed rules. He traced the patterns, looking for vulnerabilities. Then he found it. A manual override, likely a failsafe in case the AI locked them out. He tapped the sequence, watching as security doors across the deck flickered green. Open. The intercom crackled again. Impressive, the voice said. Calm. Amused. But you're not escaping. Not alive. Dante smirked. We'll see about that. Dante didn't waste time. The ship's AI had already flagged him as a priority threat, which meant the next wave wouldn't be regular security. They would send specialists, harder, faster, more lethal. He needed to stay ahead. Keep moving. Keep hitting them where they weren't ready. The console in front of him still pulsed with alien script, security alerts scrolling rapidly across its interface. He wasn't here to play defense. He was here to make them suffer. He accessed the system override he'd found earlier. Standard lockdown procedures were in place, restricting movement across the ship. But security lockdowns worked both ways. He tapped into the controls, isolating different decks, sealing blast doors at random. If they wanted to box him in, he'd turn the ship into a labyrinth, one where only he knew the way out. Footsteps pounded toward him from the left corridor. He shut the console down and slipped into the shadows, pressing himself against the cold metal wall. 3 operatives moved in formation, rifles sweeping the hall, their movements sharper than the grunts he'd dealt with earlier. Their armor was thicker, their helmets fully enclosed. Tactical gear. These weren't basic security. These were hunters. Dante adjusted his grip on the stolen rifle, angling it low. Their helmets meant no clean headshots. Their body armor meant center mass wouldn't be enough. He needed precision. He let them move past, counting the steps. 1, 2. The moment the last one crossed his position, he fired. A burst of energy cut through the closest alien's knee joint, dropping him instantly. The other two spun to react, but Dante was already moving, sprinting toward them before they could get a clean shot. He slammed his shoulder into the second one, sending them crashing into the bulkhead, then pivoted, using the body as a shield. The third alien hesitated for a fraction of a second, unwilling to shoot through his comrade. That was their final mistake. Dante grabbed the alien's rifle, twisted it, and forced it upward. A pulse of plasma discharged, scorching the ceiling. He brought his elbow down hard against the creature's throat, crushing its windpipe. A quick, brutal end. The one he had thrown against the wall staggered, dazed but still moving. Dante snatched a combat blade from the fallen alien's belt and drove it into the gap beneath the helmet. A wet gurgle. Silence. He stepped back, breathing controlled, scanning the corridor. Clear. Then the ship rumbled beneath his feet. A deep, resonant vibration, different from the earlier alarms. This was something else. Something big. The intercom activated again. The same calm, confident voice. You're adaptive. That makes you dangerous. But you are still human. And humans are predictable. Dante didn't respond. He kept moving, sprinting toward the next corridor, searching for a way up. He needed to reach engineering or weapons control. Somewhere he could cripple the ship's command structure. But first, he had to survive what was coming next. A deep, guttural snarl echoed through the hall. Dante slowed, adjusted his grip. The bulkhead at the far end of the corridor hissed as it slid open. The thing that stepped through wasn't like the others. It was larger, heavily armored. Its limbs ended in curved claws, and its elongated head was covered in plated ridges. Its breathing was a low, menacing growl. This wasn't just another soldier. It was a predator. Dante exhaled slowly. The aliens weren't just throwing bodies at him anymore. They had released something worse. A weapon. A beast bred for war. He tightened his grip on the stolen rifle. They wanted to see what a human was capable of. Fine. He'd show them. The thing moved fast. Faster than something that size should. One moment it was standing at the far end of the corridor, a hulking mass of ridged armor and claws. The next it was charging, its footfalls shaking the deck. Dante didn't hesitate. He raised the stolen rifle and fired. The plasma burst hit center mass. But the thing didn't slow. The energy scattered across its thick plating, barely leaving a scorch mark. Dante adjusted his aim, targeting joints, exposed flesh, anything that looked vulnerable. 3 more shots. 2 connected. One clipped its shoulder, the other struck just below the ribs. The beast snarled, more anger than pain, and closed the gap. Dante threw himself sideways a split second before the creature's claws sliced through the space where his head had been. The sheer force of the swing shattered the metal paneling beside him. If it had hit, it wouldn't have been a wound. It would have been instant death. He hit the ground rolling, came up on one knee, and fired again. The thing twisted, dodging at an unnatural angle, then lunged. Dante barely got his arm up in time. Claws raked across his rifle, ripping it from his grip and sending it clattering down the hall. No weapons. No time. Just instincts. Dante shifted, using its momentum against it, sidestepping and driving his elbow into the base of its skull. The impact barely registered. The creature whirled, lashing out with a backhand strike that sent him skidding across the floor. His vision blurred for half a second. He tasted blood. The beast stalked forward, claws flexing. It wasn't mindless. It wasn't just attacking blindly. It was studying him, calculating. That meant it could think. That meant it could make mistakes. Dante pushed himself up. He wasn't going to win this with brute force. He needed strategy, terrain, leverage. He scanned his surroundings. The corridor was too open, no cover, no advantage. But 20 meters back, the security checkpoint. A reinforced bulkhead. The console still flickering from his earlier hack. He bolted. The beast roared, a sound that made the walls vibrate. It pursued, claws scraping against metal as it tore down the hallway after him. Dante didn't look back. He didn't need to. He could feel it closing in. 10 meters. 5. He reached the console, slammed his hand onto the interface, and activated the lockdown. The bulkhead door slammed down between them just as the creature lunged. The impact shook the entire section. The metal groaned, bending inward as the beast struck it again and again. Dents appeared in the reinforced plating. The door wasn't going to hold. Dante's fingers flew over the controls. He rerouted power, overriding containment protocols. If this ship had biological weapons, it had fail-safes, and fail-safes meant airlocks. The creature struck again, cracking the bulkhead. Dante triggered the purge. The security doors behind the beast exploded open, a vacuum sucking everything in its path toward the emergency ejection chamber. The force caught the creature mid-strike, yanking it backward. It dug its claws into the floor, fighting against the pull. Dante watched, breath steady, waiting. The beast held on. Not good enough. Dante grabbed the discarded plasma rifle from the floor and fired one precise shot, right into the structural damage the monster had already caused on the bulkhead. The weakened plating gave way. The beast lost its grip. It roared as it was ripped from the floor and hurled into the void. The outer door sealed shut. Silence. Dante exhaled. His body ached. His vision still swam from the earlier hit. But he was alive. And now, the ship was down one apex predator. The intercom crackled. That same cold, calculated voice. I see now. You're not just dangerous. You're a problem. Dante wiped blood from his lip. He grinned. Damn right. The silence didn't last. The ship's lighting shifted, a deep crimson washing over the corridors. A low hum vibrated through the floor. It wasn't an alarm. It was a shift in protocol. They weren't treating him like a rogue prisoner anymore. This was a full combat lockdown. Dante took a slow breath. Good. They were finally learning. He needed to move. The AI running the ship would be rerouting squads, sealing paths, adjusting strategy. He had maybe 2 minutes before the next wave hit. He checked his stolen rifle, power cell still running strong. The other one, slung across his back, was fully charged. Enough for a fight, not enough for a war. He had to end this. Engineering was his best bet. Take the ship's core offline, disable life support, force them into a position where they had to abandon ship or negotiate. But he had no idea how much time he had before reinforcements arrived. They weren't just treating him as dangerous. They were afraid. That meant they'd bring out their best. The ship trembled again, a deep, mechanical groan moving through its structure. That was new. Not a weapon's discharge. Not an impact. A shift. Dante sprinted, moving through the corridors with precision. He knew the patterns now. Security routes, reinforcement timings. Every ship, every military operation, fell into predictable rhythms. They could adapt, but not fast enough. He cut through a side passage, ducking through an open maintenance hatch. If he was right, this should lead him toward. A heavy blast door blocked his path. Not standard security. A fail-safe. They weren't trying to trap him anymore. They were trying to isolate him. The intercom crackled again. That same voice. No amusement this time. No arrogance. Just cold calculation. You adapt. You survive. That's what makes your kind so dangerous. Dante stayed silent, scanning the door's control panel. No manual override. Hardwired security lock. No way through without clearance. The voice continued. But you are only one. We are many. Dante tensed. Footsteps. Heavy. Precise. Coordinated. They weren't sending regular troops. Not even elites. They were sending killers. The first shot came from his left. He dropped instantly, rolling behind a support beam as energy blasts seared past. These weren't the scattered, panicked shots from before. These were disciplined. Measured. They'd stopped underestimating him. Dante leaned out, fired 2 shots, then moved before the return fire could track him. He caught a glimpse of them. New armor, heavier plating, dark visors with no exposed flesh. Elite strike units. They weren't taking chances. Dante sprinted for cover, vaulting over a storage crate as plasma ripped through the air behind him. He needed to shift the fight, change the terrain. This corridor was too open, too clean. He needed chaos. His eyes flicked up. Overhead vent shafts. Maybe large enough. Maybe not. No time to debate. He fired twice at the ceiling panel, weakening the structure, then leapt. His fingers caught the edge. He pulled himself up, muscles burning, legs kicking for traction. A shot grazed his boot as he slammed into the ventilation duct and rolled inside. Tight space. Awkward movement, but an advantage. He crawled fast, keeping his weight distributed. The strike team moved below, sweeping the area. Their leader spoke in clipped tones. He's above. Smart. Dante didn't stop. He moved faster, navigating the tight metal corridor. He didn't need to stay hidden. He just needed to get ahead. Because he wasn't running. He was hunting. He reached a junction, a weak point in the structure. He positioned himself above it, waited, listened. The team moved beneath him, cautious but closing in. Dante grinned, and then he dropped. His full weight slammed onto the first operative, bringing him down hard. Before the others could react, he was already moving. A rifle torn from a grip, a stock driven into a throat, a stolen knife buried between armor plates. 3 down in seconds. The rest hesitated. Just for a moment, Dante raised his rifle, breath steady. Come on, then. The fight wasn't over, but it was his now. The strike team hesitated, not out of fear. At least, not yet. They were assessing, recalculating. That was the problem with elite soldiers. Too much discipline. Too much training. They thought in tactics. Dante thought in survival. He didn't wait for them to move first. He launched forward, firing a tight burst into the closest operative's knee. The armor absorbed some of it, but not enough. The soldier staggered, and Dante was already there, ripping the rifle from his hands and slamming an elbow into his visor. A crack. Another blow. The glass shattered. A third strike with the butt of his stolen rifle sent him sprawling. The others reacted, but they were a half-second too slow. Dante pivoted, ducking low, using the fallen body as temporary cover. Plasma bolts sizzled past him, scorching the metal walls. He threw himself sideways, rolling into a crouch behind a supply crate. For left. Still organized. Still deadly. Then the intercom crackled. Enough, the voice said. Cold. Final. A deep thrum vibrated through the ship, different from before. Not just an alarm. A power shift. Dante's stomach dropped. The ship was moving. Fast. He glanced at the nearest display panel. Coordinates flickered in an alien script, but he didn't need to read the language to understand what it meant. They weren't in orbit anymore. They were accelerating. Towards something big. The leader of the strike team straightened, stepping forward with newfound confidence. You fought well, human. Better than most. But this is over. Dante's grip tightened on the rifle. Yeah, over for who? The leader tilted his head slightly, then gestured toward the display. You understand, don't you? We are not retreating. We are not surrendering. We are going to our fleet. And you, human, will be studied, dissected, broken. Dante exhaled slowly. Right. They were cutting their losses. They couldn't kill him, so they'd deliver him straight to their command structure, to wherever their full military force was waiting. They weren't afraid of him. They were afraid of what would happen if he escaped. Dante smiled. I appreciate the heads up. Then he shot the display console. Sparks exploded, and the ship lurched violently. The floor tilted, alarms blaring in a language he couldn't understand. The lighting flickered. The leader's head snapped back toward him. What have you done? Dante was already moving. He didn't need to know exactly what systems he'd just fried. He just needed to know that nothing on this ship was stable anymore. The strike team faltered, thrown off by the shifting gravity. That hesitation was all Dante needed. He charged. The leader brought his rifle up, but Dante was faster, inside his guard before he could fire. He slammed his shoulder into the alien's chest, driving him backward. The others reacted too late. Dante wrenched the rifle away and flipped it in his hands. He fired twice, dropping one of the remaining soldiers before diving for cover as the others regrouped. They were still dangerous, still coordinated, but now they were off balance. The ship shuddered again, harder this time. Dante felt it in his bones. That wasn't just turbulence. That was something catastrophic. He didn't have time to fight them all. He needed control. His eyes flicked toward the emergency bulkhead behind them. Engineering. That was the key. If he could reach the core, he could force a full shutdown. Leave them stranded. Or worse. The leader seemed to realize it at the same time. He moved to block Dante's path. Dante grinned. You want to dance? Then he threw the plasma rifle at his face. The alien instinctively flinched, raising his hands. Exactly what Dante wanted. He lunged. 1 second. A sharp twist. A stolen blade. The alien gasped as Dante drove the knife straight into the gap between his armor plates. The leader staggered, hands clutching at the wound. Dante didn't wait to see him fall. He was already moving, sprinting for the bulkhead. The doors hissed open, and he slipped inside, locking them behind him. Engineering was ahead, and Dante had one last trick left to play.